Hi, Jeremy, and welcome to Entrepreneurcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Hi, Svetlana. You're very welcome.
So before we get on with the business side of things, tell us a little bit about who are you outside of your business and what do you enjoy doing in your spare time?
Okay, so at the moment I'm just looking out the window and it's a lovely sunny day in London. It's a bit cold, but I love to go to Kew Gardens, which is about 10 minutes away from where I live, the Royal Botanical Gardens. I love to go to Richmond Park with the dog, which is one of the royal parks. And I'm very lucky because I live in a lovely part of London, southwest London, so I just walk along the river between Richmond and Twickenham and Isleworth, and it's lovely. It's like being in the country, but we've got a tube station. So, yeah, that's what I like doing. I like playing golf. I like watching my football team, West Ham United. I was the stadium announcer there for 16 years, which is a long time. You get less than that for murder. And, yeah, that's me.
So you're a walker. You like to walk. I also like to walk, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I get a lot of my ideas when I'm walking.
Cool.
It's good to clear my head. And if I'm not getting any ideas, then I just put a headset on. Not this one, because this is attached to a wire, but this one, which is exactly the same, that's not attached to a wire. And I put that on my head, and I listen to Radio 4 podcasts, usually comedy podcasts or audio books, because I've always read a lot, but because I spend so much time writing stuff, I don't want to be in the house reading, so I'll go out in the countryside with the headset and listen to a book.
So you prefer audiobooks to actual physical books?
No, I prefer physical books, but I like to extend my time outdoors. So often I'll buy a book on Kindle and then I'll also buy the audio version, and then they sync up together. So it's very clever that somehow the audio version knows where you are in the Kindle, and when you get in your car, it picks up where you left off. I spend a lot of my time on the motorway driving to gigs, speaking gigs, and I can't read while I'm driving because it's against the law. So I listen.
So tell us about your business and what has inspired you to start it.
So my business is called Talking Toolbox. The main area really is teaching people how to be more engaging and entertaining when speaking in public. I also do after dinner speaking, and I do comparing emceeing of gigs. I actually write speeches for people as well, put funny stuff in speeches. But probably the most useful bit to people watching this would be Talking Toolbox, the Masterclass, which is I do a one-day class on how to make people more entertaining and engaging, and then I do the one-on-one coaching. And the idea behind that really is my background's BBC. So I joined the BBC in 1987 and left in 2014. And so I was on TV, I was on radio, I was a reporter, I was a presenter. And so I used to get asked to be the compere, which in America they call it the MC. Now in Europe we say compere, America MC, but it's the host, it's the person who stands up and introduces everyone. And I would get asked to do that because I was the guy off the radio or the guy off the television. And I would introduce speakers in the corporate world that were rubbish. They were just awful. They were shocking. Big companies would pay me a lot of money to introduce these people. They'd fly all their people in from Europe and to somewhere in a hotel somewhere in Europe, and they'd fly them in from all over the world. And then they'd line up these speakers who would just talk for an hour with dreadful slides, no stories, just facts. So they'd just turn their heads and click and turn and click, read the stuff off the screen. And after about 10 years of this, I just thought there has to be a better way. And I got quite annoyed about it. And I think that's quite a good basis for a business, to get annoyed about something. And I just thought, why on earth are all these companies spending all this money getting these people to come here and then they give them this rubbish? Surely that can't be right. So after 10 years of being the MC, I finally went up to one of the chief executives at the end and said, would you like me to make your presentation a bit more interesting? Now that might be seen as being a bit rude, but fortunately he said yes please. He could have been outraged, but he said yes please, and so he became my first corporate client, and I helped him with his presentation, and then he got a lot better over the next year. And people started saying, oh, you're a lot better. How did that happen? And he said, oh, I used this guy, Jeremy Nicholas. And so I started just getting word of mouth referrals. I didn't particularly advertise my services. I didn't even have a limited company then. It was literally, I was a broadcaster and I'd help people. And I didn't even charge them very much to start with because I quite liked doing it. And then gradually over the years, I don't know how much you know about the world of broadcasting, but the money fell out of broadcasting. There's too many TV channels now. You know, when I started, there was BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4. So 4 television channels in the UK. Now it's 200 and I don't know how many, loads. And obviously there's not, you know, there's only the same amount of advertising money to go around. So the money dropped out. And same with radio, there's all these internet channels. So I thought I was actually earning a lot more money from the speaking than I was from the broadcasting. So I carried on with the BBC, but as a freelance, just doing enough to be able to say I was a broadcaster, and then did the masterclasses, wrote a book, the one-on-one coaching, and then diversified a bit. Particularly, I think you've always got to have a niche, and my particular niche is making people funny or entertaining. Again, because I was fed up with sitting there at events with my head in my hands thinking, oh, this is going on for an hour and this person is so dull. So yeah, I help corporate speakers be more entertaining, more engaging, and on my website it says Jeremy Nicholas, keeping audiences awake since 1994, which is when I did my first ever corporate gig on the QE2, the ship.
Well, you definitely do, because I heard you several times speak, and you are pretty funny.
Yeah, and you hardly fell asleep at all. So
yeah,
that was good. That's a measure of my success. I always have a camera pointing at the audience, and if less than 10% of them are asleep, I think then that's been a good day.
So, Jeremy, what would you say was your greatest challenge, and how did you manage to overcome it?
I don't really want to name anyone's names because I've worked with some quite recognisable people. There was one man who he was an Indian, and he worked for a very well-known company, and I was giving him one-on-one coaching, and he kept getting his W's and his V sounds muddled up. So he kept talking about the device. We've got this new device, and I said, oh yeah, it's device. Yeah, that's right, device. And it's something actually that people from the Indian subcontinent, people from Germany, Austria, Switzerland often do. I don't know why those particular places, but they can't hear the difference between the V and the W sound. But they can say both sounds. So, often there's another German guy I worked with, and he kept saying, we are very, very happy about this. I said, it's very happy, isn't it? But he'd also get it the other way around. It's not just, he didn't just replace his V's with W's, he replaced his W's with V's. So he'd say it was very wonderful. So what? It's very wonderful. You can do both sounds. And eventually I solved it by I took a candle along. And so I'd hold the candle in front of his mouth, and I'll say, right, when you do the w sound, the candle will move. It blows in the wind. Like w for wind, it moves. But the, it doesn't move. You can try this yourself. Put your hand in front of your mouth like this.
How did you figure it out?
Well, just because it's the shape of your mouth. If you think of the shape of your mouth, you say wonderful. Your lips come forward, wonderful. But if you say very, just think what's happening to your mouth. Your teeth are going on your bottom lip. Very, very wonderful.
Yeah.
just to make that easier, I just got the candle and said, when the wild wind blows from the west, and you could say, can you feel the wild wind blowing from the west? And you go, yes, I can feel the wind. And I go, right, okay, that's good. Now say, when the wild wind blows, can you feel the wind now? No. And I said, that's good. If you can't feel the wind, then you're doing W's. If you, so it's the wild west wind gives you the wind, but very, very, very no wind. So yeah, I suppose that was one of the biggest challenges is often working with chief execs and people. No one in their company ever tells them no. And then I'll turn up and I'll say, no, you can't do that. And they just look horrified because everyone always says, no, you're the boss. I'll say, well, you can do that. Or sometimes they'll say, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a script, and they'll come out with a bit of paper like this. And I'll go, well, you can't do that. And they're, well, how will I do it? And I'll say, well, you can't have it like that, because if you've got it on a bit of paper, it's going to shake like that, and you're going to be nervous. If you can't remember it, put it on some little bits of card. Like that. So it's smaller. And also it doesn't shake and show that you're nervous. And often, like I say, chief execs aren't used to that. But it's much better that I tell them there and then, rather than they go out on the platform to 300 people at the annual conference and they're rubbish. loads of mistakes that people make. There was one guy who just I've introduced him, I think, 3 or 4 times at events, and he never gives me an introduction to read. He just says, "Say what you want." I'll say, "That's no good. You've got to have, I need something written down, just 3 or 4 lines, so I can get you off to a great start." And he never does it. And so then I make up something, and then the first thing he says is pretty much what I've just said, and I'd think, well, that's daft. But you can only advise people. You can't make them do it. I'm not a headmaster. I'm just a coach. Say, this is what I would do, and then see how they get on.
That's a lot of pretty good advice right there. But even like having the little cards.
Yeah, if you want some top tips, I'll just give you 5 top tips on speaking, and I've got about 40, so I don't know which ones to give you. One is that you should always time your presentations. So there's a brilliant little app you can get on your phone called Presentation Clock, and it costs 79 pence, which is about €1. Presentation Clock, and it just counts down. So you just load it onto your phone. I'll get it. I'll put it in here and show you what it looks like. But it's the best euro or 79 pence or dollar that you'll ever spend in your life. And it just looks like this. So how long would you typically talk for if you were doing a talk?
Let's say 45 minutes, an hour.
Okay, so 45 sounds better. Let's give you, I've got one loaded up here for 47 minutes, and it just counts down like that. So you don't need to remember, what time did I start? And you're looking at the clock, and you just put that in the front row and just look at that presentation clock. It's genius, and it can, if you want, it will beep. Say with 20 minutes to go and it'll turn yellow, and with 10 minutes to go it'll turn red, or whatever you tell it to do, it'll beep or vibrate, and just have that on your podium, and then it takes away all the pressure. So that's a really good tip. Did I say I'd give you 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can have it on your phone.
Yeah, you have it on your phone, or you can have it on your iPad. So I always take a spare phone. So this is my main phone, this is my old phone, and I'll usually put it on that. And then, you don't need to worry about having your phone with you and it interfering with the microphone. Always have some water with you. Room temperature water, not cold water, because cold water takes away any effect you have of warming your voice up. It would be like going to the gym, warming up, and then suddenly having a cold shower. So you need a warm voice. So don't use cold water. And often I'll see people just about to go on, and you've got those little water dispensers, and there's like a chilled one and a normal one. And I'll see them having the chilled one. I think, no. And then they'll come on and go, hello. Excuse me, because they've lost all the effect of warming. So have some water, get to the event nice and early so that you get on that stage, and just imagine it going well. The number of people that bundle in at the back and then just walk straight on and they're out of breath because they've been running from the tube station, just get there visualizing it all going well. People never know what to do with their hands. Further south you go in Europe, the more people do this with their hands. In Northern Europe, they're more restrained with them. If you don't know what to do with them, either have a microphone that you hold in your hand. That's not a very good microphone. Have I got a better one around here? Yeah, this one. So, hold your microphone in your hand like that, and it gives you something to do with your hand. Or just clasp them like that, but round about your belly button down there. Thing to do with your hands is never do anything up here with them, because it makes you look a bit like an evangelical preacher. Yeah, way to go. And never do anything straight down there like that, because that just makes you look odd. So always keep your hands sort of in the middle, and if you don't know what to do with them, hold them like that. Or just hold the microphone. Is that 4? Have I done 4?
Yeah.
And one more, just practice your talk. So many people spend all their time writing. For 2 weeks they'll be, I've got to get this talk, I'm doing this talk. And then the night before is the first time they ever do it out loud. So whenever you do your thing, you must always stand up. You probably can't see me now, but that's fine. Stand up and then do it out loud. Because it's only if you do it out loud that you realise that you can't say things. So I used to read the news on the BBC World Service on the radio. And it was a 3-hour show. So I would write my own interview bits and my scripts and things, but obviously for the news bulletin that would be happening once I was on air. I couldn't predict what the news would be in 3 hours time, so someone would give me the news about 3 minutes before I had to read it while the co-presenter was doing another interview, and I would go through it and just see, are there any words that I can't say? Now the words that I can't say are British citizenship. It's very hard. I sound drunk. British citizenship. So I would always cross that out and put UK citizenship. It's easier. British citizenship, disaster. And I could never say in an attempt. So I'd always cross that out and put in a bid. Because in an attempt at speed, I sounded drunk. And people would write in and say the newsreader's drunk, and it wasn't always true. So I would... you should do that with the thing.
They actually said that.
Yeah, they say your newsreader sounds drunk, and I wasn't. I think I was on painkillers for my back or something at one time in an attempt. So I thought, right, from now on, it's in a bid. And the number of people that I see do presentations that can't say technological. They start because it looks like technology, so they go technological, and then they panic and try and turn it into tech. If there's a word you can't say, find a shorter, easier word to do it. But always practice any kind of presentation out loud and standing up.
When I used to sing years ago, and my singing teacher, he always used to say before we are going to have a concert, not to have anything sweet. Do you know anything about that? Is that truth? You shouldn't have like any sweets. So he said like, obviously no cold, like no ice cream, but also no candies or chocolate.
Right. I don't know anything about any adverse effect of sugar, but there's definitely a case for the adverse effect of dairy products. Oh. So a lot of speakers won't have a cappuccino or milk in their coffee or cheese or breakfast cereal if they're going to speak, because for some people, I think it's only probably about 20% of people, it can block up your nose a bit. Dairy products give you more mucus, and then so if you ever see a speaker coming on, they're like, "Good morning, everyone. Welcome today," and they've got a bit of a blocked up nose. Either they've got a cold or they've just had a cappuccino.
Oh, wow.
Now, I've seen lots of people swear, lots of speakers will never have any dairy thing, on the day of a big talk. But also a lot of other people say that's nonsense. But certainly for me, it does affect me a bit, but I'm quite a sensitive flower. So, yeah. But if you do find that you sound high talk like that, just try not having dairy the day before and see what happens. But sugar, I've never heard that.
No. Okay. That's good to know.
I think maybe that your singing teacher was just stealing your sweets. I think that's what was happening.
We obviously went through your biggest challenges, but what would you say was your greatest success?
Right, so I set up a limited company for my Talking Toolbox training work, and I was plodding along nicely, going from referral to referral to referral, and each job was leading to another job, but that's not really any way to grow a business, is it? You need it, each referral needs to lead to two so that you get bigger and bigger. And so eventually I decided I'll just put on an event. So I put on a workshop, and I offered 8 places for people to come. I charged them £247 each for a day, and I filled it. And I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. And then from that, they did start, each one of those would start referring me, because it was very, very, very niche, very, very targeted, rather than just saying, if you go up to someone at an event and say, would you like some help with your presentation skills? Everyone does presentation skills. Every professional speaker has as their backup thing, oh, I'll teach you how to be a better speaker. And I know probably 300 professional speakers, and there'll be an expert on leadership, an expert on team building, an expert on marketing, an expert on sales, but all of them also have down the bottom, I also do presentation skills. And I thought, okay, so I've filled my workshop, but how can I get it bigger? So I stopped calling it presentation skills, and I called it Talking Toolbox, and no one really knows what that means. And I call it a Talking Toolbox Masterclass, because a masterclass is more prestigious than a workshop. It's exactly the same thing, but I don't know, a workshop, I think people think maybe you're going to be in overalls and do some woodwork or something. So I called it a masterclass, kept the price the same, but just changed it so that it's, instead of being presentation skills, it's how to be entertaining and engaging, and so really mind that niche. And then that went really well, and then one of the elements in it, I did half an hour on how to be funny, and lots of people really liked that. And then eventually someone said to me, when's part 2? And
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? They went, part 2, we want to do, your next masterclass. What's that on? And I just said, Of course, there wasn't a part 2. So, but you must never say there's not a part 2. You must always think, oh yes, there should be a part 2. So I said, what it is, and I literally made it up as I went along. I said, what it is there's one on how just to be funny. It's the whole day on how to be funny. Oh, brilliant! I'd love that. I'll come to that. And then I thought, right, I better now think of that. But fortunately, that is the one bit that I specialise in. Yeah. So now I do 2. I do the Talking Toolbox one, which is the whole day on entertaining and engaging, and holding on to your audience. And then the second one is Talking Funny Masterclass, and that is just using humour. And you'd think business people wouldn't want to be funny, but they do, because they realise that they can hold the audience's attention. Because they'll, typically if you're at a day's conference and there's 8 speakers on and one of them tells great stories and gets the audience laughing, everyone stays, tuned. And when I say stays tuned, what I mean is they don't, how many times you're at a conference and someone's, speaking and they're sort of they're half listening, and then suddenly someone laughs, they go, oh. And people start putting Twitter and Facebook away, and they're not on LinkedIn looking for their next job. And they put their phone and go, oh, right, so yes, this person's quite good, are they? So, honestly, that is the way forward. So the Talking Funny one has almost taken over Talking Toolbox. I run them in parallel, and often people come to the Talking Toolbox first and then go on to the Talking Funny one. But I think that's been my biggest success. And what I'd say to any entrepreneur or business person is find your niche, find the bit that you're really good at or the bit you really love, and just do more and more of that and become really well known for that. Because I found there were so many people doing presentation skills, but hardly anyone does how to make you funny.
Yeah, it's very important to be funny. I remember I used to really want to be funny, and I never could do, and I would come up with all these jokes and I would be the only one laughing and it was terrible. I still didn't quite nail it, but sometimes I say something and people laugh and I'm like, what did I say that is so funny? So would you have like a couple of very quick short tips on how people can just become funny sort of overnight?
Yes, so tip number 1 is if you're not at all funny, don't try and be funny. Just forget it. There's nothing worse than just someone thinking, oh, I saw Dave talk and he was funny, so I'm going to be trying to be funny. Honestly, if no one has ever laughed at you in your life, then put it to one side. But that's only about 10% of people. 90% of people I can make funny. The big thing is don't tell jokes, tell stories. So maybe that's where you were going wrong. You were telling jokes. Now, if by telling jokes, what I mean is don't say, there was this bloke and he walks into a pub and there's these 3, don't do that because it sounds like a joke. Or here's a funny thing, here's a funny one for you. And instantly the audience fold their arms and go, well, we'll be the judge of that. So what you want to do is put a funny line in, but don't make it sound as though it's a joke. So I will often tell true stories. I tend to bring in real people. So I talk a lot about my dad or my mum or my nana or my wife or people from football or people I've worked with. Real things. I don't do stuff about Gandhi and Kennedy and not famous people I don't know. I never met Mahatma Gandhi. I'd have loved to have met him, but I didn't. Never met John F. Kennedy. He was shot when I was 1. But I did meet my nana. I did meet my dad, people from my football team, and I've got great stories about those. And the good thing is no one will have heard those. Everyone's heard all the famous people stories. And so if ever a speaker says, I think it was John F. Kennedy who once said, don't do that. But if they say, oh, my 10-year-old son said this the other day, I think, oh, this will be good. So don't tell jokes, tell stories. And if you're telling a story to someone in real life and it gets a little bit of a laugh, remember what the laugh was and then go back to it and think, why was that funny? So I will always record. So a little device like that's called a Zoom H2. I would every time I speak, I have that on, and then on the way home in the car or on the tube, put my headset on, and I'll listen, and I'll think, why did that get a laugh? That doesn't usually get a laugh. Oh, I see. I'll put that in next time. So unintentional bits that get laughed, you'll use again next time. And it's all those little throwaway lines that you'll never. Like one time I did a story about how my wedding day was like a fairy tale. It was my best day of my life. It was like a fairy tale. And I just, into my head, pinged this idea. And I said, it was like a fairy tale because I have 2 ugly sisters. And it got a bit of a laugh. and I just thought, oh, that's quite amusing. So the next time I did it, and I said, because I've got two ugly sisters, and they laughed again. The third event I did it had almost become part of the line, so it looked as though I was trying to get a laugh out of it, and it didn't get a laugh. And I realised it only works if it looks like it's just occurred to me. And particularly British audiences, they don't like it if you look like you're trying to be funny. They like it if you're almost effortlessly seem to be witty. You know, things are just occurring to you. So stand-up comedians will do the same 20 minutes every night and look as though they're just making it up. You know, and often I know lots of comedians, and people will come up to them afterwards and say, do you just make it up as you go along then? And they'll go, no, of course not. It's all absolutely prepared. But the idea is you've got to make it look as though you make it up as you go along. No one likes it. No one likes a smart ass. That's the thing. No one likes it if you fancy yourself, if you're too clever. It's a really British thing. You're meant to just be effortlessly good. But if it looks like you practiced or written it, no. Fancies himself a bit too much. So what I suggest people do, particularly with humour, get it funny, get it slick, and then rough it up so that you're playing around with it. You don't want to ever look like you're acting it out. You just want to look like it's just occurring to you.
So obviously you said you come up with some of your ideas when you walk, and then when you review your speech, right? But I've also seen you just coming up with jokes just before the gig when you listen to the other speakers, and you came up with your notebook or a little black book, and you were writing notes on that, and then you just come up with them instantly. So what would you say, what are the best jokes that you come up with? How do they come around? Is it just kind of instantly when you listen to something, or is there any particular place you usually come up with your ideas and stories and jokes and so on?
Yeah, so I used to have a whole load of notebooks in the cupboard over there, and every time I'd just have one in my pocket, and I'd see something funny on the tube, or I'd read something in the paper, and I'd just make a note of it, and then I'd use it. And I still carry those, but now, if I can just get it up on, you can't see what I'm doing on my computer, but I use Evernote. I don't know if you use Evernote, but Evernote's brilliant. And so I have a file in Evernote for topical jokes or funny lines. Someone the other day was doing a speaker was doing a thing with acronyms where they were spelling things out like FEAR, F-E-A-R, and the F stood for something in the E. And then another person at the event also made something spell out. And I just thought, oh, okay. So that's like a theme of the day. Everyone's spelling things out with letters. So when I came on, I said, I hate acronyms and everything they stand for. And it's just a funny line, really. And it got a little bit of a laugh because I paused. I hate acronyms. Pause. And everything they stand for. And then people think, oh, right, everything. Oh, yes, because it stands for things. It's not a genius line, is it? And then one thing that's quite a good thing to do is if there's something has already happened at the event you're at, or a previous speaker has said something, maybe you're pitching for business and there's three of you and the other two have said something, and you can think of something off the back of what they've said, then mention that. So I'm always, particularly because I MC a lot of events, I will write down one thing that the previous speaker said, and I'll think, where's the funny in that? What can I say that's funnier from that?
So can you train that in yourself to start coming up with it? Does it come with experience, or do you just have to be as smart as you are?
I think a lot of it is just being a genius, but for people who aren't, no. One of the things is just letting your mind go. People are so focused in their minds that often they don't see the funny, and you've got to think, where is the funny in that? So one quite good exercise is to find two completely different things and then find what's the link between those things. Or how can you make something amusing out of that? So if you think of sketch shows, often they'll pick two completely diverse subjects. So it might be something like Welsh people and James Bond films. And you think, right, what if Wales produced their own James Bond film, what would it be like? And then, so I'd start thinking, right, everything to do with James Bond, everything to do with Wales, and then think, what would be the cross for that? So I would write down like a list of all the titles of James Bond films, and then the list of all Welsh famous people, Welsh names, places in Wales, and just think, what's the link with that? I don't know why I picked this as an example. I can't think of a single thing. But so, all right. So James Bond films Live and Let Die, and Die is a Welsh person's name. It's spelt D-A-I. So you might say, have you seen the new Welsh James Bond film Live and Let Die? Hmm. It's rubbish. I know it's rubbish, but I picked a very bad example. And then you think, right, so there's other films like this James Bond film From Russia with Love. So is there a place in Wales that sounds a bit like Russia that you could say From Cardiff with Love or From Swansea with Love? No, neither of those sound like Russia. From Wrexham with Love? Not really, because it doesn't sound like Russia. So if there was a place that sounded a bit like Russia, then that would be funny. From Bangor with Love, I don't know. From Anglesey, no, I can't. I don't even know why I picked Wales. I don't really know very much about Wales. I should have picked somewhere I knew. I should have picked tube stations and James Bond films. Then it would be hilarious. But yeah, just think, what is the funny between those two things? What is something that links them, or what would be odd? What if you think a lot of comedy is sort of fish out of water? If you think like Arnold Schwarzenegger doing a film like Kindergarten Cop, it's funny because he's in a kindergarten, but really he's a cop. So that's someone in a difficult situation. And just think about anything like that. Where is the funny? And often it's just that throwaway line that occurs to you. And I just encourage people just to say it. So many people have what's called an internal editor, where they think of something funny and they think, oh, I better not say that. People will think badly of me. And I just say to them, say it and see what happens. Obviously not if it's racist, sexist, homophobic, swearing, bad taste, going to offend the culture you're in. Don't. But if you think, yeah, I'll try that, just see what's going to happen. Unfortunately, where a lot of business people go wrong is that they think of things that their friends at the golf club would find funny. And so often it's going to be white men, middle-aged men, and then they'll think, actually, that's funny with the guys at the golf club, but it's not funny to everyone. They haven't thought of the... So I always say to anyone, just think not only of the audience in front of you, but if they went out of the room and then told other people, would it upset anyone? Because if it would, don't do it.
So Jeremy, would you say you have any people who inspire you? Do you have any personal heroes?
Yes, Gandhi, but I never met him. Yeah, no, so I like underdogs like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and people like that. I like a lot of comedians. Frank Skinner. It's a signed picture of Frank up. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see the pictures on my wall up there? That's Frank Skinner.
Yeah. Is there Mr. Bean there?
Oh yeah, Mr. Bean's there, yeah. So looking at my wall there, Sid Charisse, the dancer, Mr. Bean, Bobby Moore, captain of England when they won the World Cup, he's a hero of mine, and Bob Monkhouse, who's a comedian and presents a lot of game shows, and Ricky Gervais, another comedian.
I heard about Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, so Bobby Moore, I've got a little statue of Bobby Moore somewhere. It looks like he might have gone off somewhere. He was the captain of England when we won the World Cup, and he was the captain of my football team, West Ham United, and I was the stadium announcer there for 16 years. And I met Bobby a few times, and he was just immaculate in terms of he would always come in on a Sunday on his own and train. The rest of the team would have the day off, and he would train on the ground on his own. And when we won the World Cup, he had muddy hands because it was a muddy day. We beat Germany, West Germany, 4-2, 1966. I was 3, and he knew that to get the cup, he had to shake hands with the Queen. Same Queen as we've got now, same Queen as we've always had since I've been alive. And she had white velvet gloves on, and he had muddy hands. And he walked up the famous 39 steps, and you can see him, and he's brushing his hands on the blue velvet on the side so that he won't make the Queen's hands dirty. This man was like the hero. It's the only time we've ever won the Football World Cup. And all he could think about was not getting the Queen's hands dirty. I mean, that's how thoughtful and immaculate he was in everything he did. So yeah, he's a hero. Yeah. Sorry, I probably should have had a business hero, shouldn't I, as it's entrepreneur. I've gone for a sports person, but there we are.
I know that you've written a book. So what is your book about? What's the name of it?
Yeah, so I've written 4 books actually. The first one was Media Masters, about how to come across well in the media, and that was a co-production with Alan Stevens, who's a good friend of mine, another speaker. I did a book on my life, sort of autobiography, about being the announcer at West Ham, called Mr. Moon Has Left the Stadium, which is curiously also the safety announcement at West Ham. Then I did an ebook, which anyone that's watching this, I'll send a free copy to if they would like one. Well, you can put the resource on your thing, and that's called 1,000,000 Tips on Public Speaking (brackets Volume 1). Because obviously there's not 1,000,000 tips in there, but if you just say Volume 1, you can get away with it. So that's an ebook, and then there'll be a book coming out later this year in 2017, which is the book of Talking Toolbox. And that will be done as soon as I finished it. But it's only about 3 years behind deadline, so I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah. But
well, it's okay. I spoke to Nikki Owen the other day, and she said her book took her 25 years to write. So you only 3 years. I mean, not too late. It's fine.
I tell you what, it's a cracker. It's an absolute cracker. It's a funny book about how to be a better speaker. And it's packed with stories, because my big thing is tell stories. Give examples. Don't just give facts. Facts. People can't remember facts.
I know a lot of people say that there was this particular book that changed their life. Do you have a book like that?
I've got over 100 books on speaking, on how to be a better speaker. Probably there's 2 that are really good. One is by an American speaker called Doug Stevenson. First time I bought it was called Never Be Boring Again. And I liked it so much that when I saw his next book, which was called Story Theatre Method, I bought it and found actually it was the same book. He just retitled it because it didn't sell very well because it had the word boring in the title. And so I was furious. I thought I'd bought the same book twice, but actually it was slightly updated, so I didn't mind too much. So if you do buy it, Story Theatre Method, and it's all... He was an actor, went to Hollywood, didn't really make it in the movies, but then went back to set up his speaking business, taught people how to tell stories like an actor would. And the main thing with that is that you don't just narrate the story, you do the dialogue. So you actually become the characters in it, and you turn and talk like that and do the voices. So that's really good. Story Theatre Method, Doug Stevenson. Stevenson's with a V. And then there's another book called Lend Me Your Ears, which is written by an academic. He did this TV documentary in the 80s where he had someone from the Social Democratic Party and he trained them to speak at their conference, and it was like a real novice speaker, and he used all of these fantastic techniques. Professor Max Atkinson, lend me your ears. And it's really good because I don't have a classical education. I did engineering at university and then journalism, and he's looked at all aspects of like ancient Greece and ancient Rome and the classic orators and how they used rhetoric as persuasive argument. So that was a real sort of crash course for me. So yeah, Lend Me Your Ears. That's really good.
So obviously you've achieved quite a bit, but what's next for you? Where are you trying to get next? What's your next goal?
Well, so I suppose my biggest thing is in 2015 I got awarded the Professional Speaking Award of Excellence, which I was the 15th person ever in history to get. And you don't know you're going to get it. It was at the conference of the Professional Speaking Association. And then when they read my name out, I burst into tears. And they give it for continued platform excellence and a good professional attitude. And by bursting into tears, I showed I had neither of those things, but they let me keep the trophy. So that's it. I don't think there is anything higher that you can get as an award. So in business terms, I suppose I'd just like to speak abroad a bit more. I speak quite a lot in Europe and South Africa, but I've never had a paid gig in America. That would be nice. And the main reason is because you're not really allowed to. Because you need to, I don't have permission to work there. I do have permission to work in Europe, but foolishly we've just voted against that. So I'm now thinking, Europe, that used to be where I did a lot of work. South Africa, I can still go there. I have very good links there. And it'd be quite nice now to do some stuff in America. There are, you can, even if it's, you're invited to speak at a conference, that would be nice. Okay. But yeah, so I need to do more travelling now. I feel like I've conquered London, and certainly some parts of the middle of England and the north of England, and to less success the west of England. But now I feel like I need to conquer America.
So if anyone listens to us today who has any links to American gigs or people who could get Jeremy to speak in America, please come forward and get in touch. And is there anyone else that could help you? Like, what kind of person will be out there who could help you in any of your goals?
Oh, I think it's kind of going all right, really. I don't feel like I need that much help, but it's always nice to speak to anyone that needs an after-dinner speaker. So after-dinner speaking, very different from the keynote speaking in that it's purely about the entertainment. And I do a lot of that with stories about my life in broadcasting and when things went wrong. People love it when things go wrong. So anyone that's ever got an after-dinner event, anyone that ever needs an MC, and award shows. I seem to specialise in award shows. I don't know why, but that's always quite nice. So I spend my life in a bow tie and dinner jacket, tuxedo. I eat a lot of chicken dinners. Not Kentucky Fried Chicken, but, you know, proper dinners at award shows. So you just get in touch if you need someone who's funny, but also will run things to time. Because often I get booked because they want someone funny, and then they spend all the time wondering that I'm going to be funny. Yeah. Oh, you're not going to be too funny, are you? Well, that's why you booked me. No, but we've got the big boss here, so don't be too funny. All right, okay. and then I'm a little bit funny, but you've got to make sure it's what they want.
Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with the listener today?
Yes.
Advice from yourself.
Okay, so a couple of things. One is that I'm the president of the Professional Speaking Association for London. So we meet second Saturday of most months. So if you go to thepsa.co.uk, and you can come along as a guest. You have to pay, but you can come along as a guest, and I'm the MC, get a chance to meet me and just have a great day and listen to some brilliant speakers, and we have a hot lunch. It's fantastic. And that's at Marble Arch, very central in London. And the other thing is I have a newsletter that goes out every Wednesday morning at 10 to 9, which again is called Talking Toolbox. All my stuff's called Talking Toolbox. And it's just a weekly tip sheet on how to be entertaining and engaging, and it's for professional speakers but also for public speakers. So if you ever have to speak at a school, or you don't get paid for speaking, but as some hobby or organisation, it's just full of tips, and I run through all things that have happened in the week. So if Donald Trump's just said something or Theresa May said something, I'll just analyse what I liked, what I didn't like, and it's also quite a lot of funny stuff in there, so it's a good fun read. And if you'd like that, then I'll give you the link just to sign up for that. And anyone that signs up for that gets the free ebook I mentioned, 1,000,000 Tips on Public Speaking brackets Volume 1.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
What's the best way for anyone who wants to contact you? Your website, email address, social media? Yeah,
so my website is jeremynicholas.co.uk, but because that's quite hard to spell, people panic and put a G in Jeremy and it's got a J. So an easier one is talkingtoolbox.com, and it goes to exactly the same place. So talkingtoolbox.com. Best way to contact me, well, yeah, and then my email's on there, which is gem@jeremynicholas.co.uk.
Thank you very much for this.
You're welcome.
And I really hope to see you sometime soon.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you.